Hi everyone. So it is a very rainy day in Southern California, one of those rare days, and I got drenched, so I look like a drowned rat. But I wanted to talk to you today about self-sabotage. So self-sabotage is a really interesting thing. Boy, is it frustrating. I'm coaching somebody and I don't know if you know someone who sabotages their life repeatedly. Like you give them tools or you're helping them or somehow they've been given opportunities and they don't seem to take them. And I have been really down and out in my life and super depressed and had lots of challenges. But when someone gives me an opportunity, I jump on it. Like I can't wait to figure it out and or go to school or learn something new. And so as being a coach, I'm working with somebody who seems to continually sabotage their success. I don't know if continually might be a little strong, but I've noticed a pattern. And all of a sudden I started taking it really personally. And I started to realize I was making it about me. So I was getting angry about it. I was getting frustrated. I felt like a failure. And I'm like, am I not smart enough? Do I not have enough tools? Like, what is the deal here? So, true to my normal way of doing things, I jumped in and started trying to figure it out and doing some research on why people sabotage themselves. And first of all, I had to step back and stop making it about me. I realized, look, this isn't about you. Okay, so you need to stop. Just because you do something a certain way doesn't mean other people do them the same way. They haven't had your same life experience. So everyone doesn't have that idea that you should just break through walls, right? They've all had their own experiences. And I really didn't quite understand, I don't really quite understand it. So I wanted to understand why people do this. And so I've got these great coaching tips, but when they weren't working with this one person, I've had great success. I'm like, what is going on here? They work really well. And then all of a sudden we have a setback, and then they work really well. And then we have a setback, and hello, kitty, stop. So I'm getting really frustrated. And so I, thank God, have some access to some pretty cool people. I talked to my husband. I went to one of the doctors in our clinics, and I actually did some research online. And we've all heard this idea that self-sabotage, hello, Daryl, hello, Ray. So self-sabotage, we hear that it's the fear of success. And I always sort of assumed that that's true. It's like, oh, these people have had so much failure in their lives. That's their normal template, and they're just afraid to succeed. But, the question is it a fear of success, or is it really a fear of failure? And a lot of the people I talk to actually seem to think that it's really more the fear of failure than the fear of success. These people are so afraid to fail. They have not had the education. They haven't had the experience of learning how to succeed, and they're so afraid to fail that they just don't try. Or they keep doing something to set themselves back so they never have to say that they tried and failed, because they're afraid that the failure is going to be so epic. So if they play small, then they never have to say that they failed. So what does self-sabotage look like? It often comes in the form of addictions, which can be shopping, eating, drugs, alcohol. Those are the obvious ones. Procrastination is a really big one. We often see a lot of people use that one. Cutting yourself. So self-harm is a form of self-sabotage. Lying to people you love repeatedly to where you keep alienating people, you push them away from you. You just keep sabotaging relationships and risk-taking behavior. Those are all some of the most common things, I think, that I've sort of seen. So why do people do it? That's really interesting. Out of all of the research I did online, not one of them mentioned brain issues. I thought that was fascinating. Not one of them mentioned the brain. It was all psychological issues, and I think that that is a huge oversight. So brain issues, brain injuries, ADD, they all mentioned the behavior, but they didn't mention what might be causing it. Things like brain injury that can cause physical trauma or emotional trauma, or how about ADD, or that sort of thing. So I thought that was sort of a big oversight. PTSD, Modeling is another one. Either they were given a bad model growing up, or they had lack of modeling. They had lack of good modeling. That's another reason. Believe it or not, self-sabotaging behavior can become a habit. So that to me was the good news. If it can be a bad habit, that means habits can be broken and you can change them. So I actually was like, that was actually encouraging. So was the brain, believe it or not, so was the brain issue, because that's what we do. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, good. At least I know that for some people that sounds scary. For me, that gives me hope, because I know that we can actually help people with brain issues, right? That was actually like hopeful, because we give people hope with brain issues. One of the ones I think that, this is where I need some help, is diminished self-worth. So a lot of these people, they just don't see themselves. They see themselves just at they really don't have a very high opinion of themselves. And there's this term called cognitive dissonance, right? So there's this disconnect between how people see themselves and what they're trying to accomplish. And they actually just have such a low opinion of themselves that it's just really, every time they start to try to accomplish something, it doesn't match up with how they see themselves. So they have to like play back down to where they actually see themselves. And so it's really hard. And so when I was coaching this person, what frustrated me really, because it means a lot. I'm highly invested. I've been invested for a long time. And we'd make so much progress, and then we'd have this big setback. And here's what I noticed. And it was, I have to find a way to break through. And so that's what I've been working on. And, in case you think that some of us that do this coaching, just, it's easy, it's not easy. There are days where it's just like, this weekend was really hard for me. But I noticed this really negative self-talk. And I thought to myself, wow, if someone else ever spoke to her that way, if someone else ever spoke to me that way, I would never tolerate it. But here was the really bad part, the really sad part. She was talking to herself in a way that it was mind-boggling. And then, all of a sudden, she started projecting that and saying that I thought that. And then she went from saying that I thought it to that I was saying it about her. And then I'm like, wait, I would never say that about another human being. And she goes, well, you must be thinking it. So do you see the danger there? Can you see that? I'm hoping you can see this. She has this disconnect between how she sees herself, so she plays small, and then she projects that onto what other people must think about her, and then she automatically assumes, well, they must see me that way, and they must be thinking that. And so I was actually blown away, because I'd never say that about another human. I'm not going to say I've never had thoughts like that, but I don't go around like thinking that, or like, it's just not, it was so horrifying. So I was so frustrated that I actually like had to go like talk to my husband about this. I'm like, what is this? Like, you deal with it all the time. I don't. I'm a coach. And people often send me, and I actually want to sidebar here. So many of you, and I love that you do send me this stuff. You send me stuff in my inbox, my private mailbox. You send me questions and requests and some pretty heavy stuff. Some of it is definitely outside of my scope of practice as a coach and as a nurse. I'm a registered nurse, but I'm not a doctor. And some of you send me questions about suicidal thoughts. You send me things about some pretty intense medical issues. So if I pass you on to someone at our clinics who can help you, okay, if I have the call center call you, it's not because I don't care. It's because it's irresponsible for me to do that. And if anybody online, no one online should be giving you that kind of advice. So I just want to like put that out there. That's outside of my scope of practice, and I would never want to hurt someone. So, I have a lot of knowledge because of what I do, but I'm not going to step outside of my scope of practice. So I just want to tell you it's not because I don't care about you. So please feel free, send me all the questions you want, but I'm going to have to find you the appropriate answers. And I'm not going to answer that on Facebook. So, I just want to tell you that, because I know some people have gotten frustrated that they're not getting the answers they want. So that's cognitive dissonance. So be careful if you're doing that. But if you know someone who's doing this, I know how frustrating this can be. If you're working with someone who has this kind of behavior, I know how hard this can be. And, I had to stop and step back and actually go back to a time in my life And it's been a long time now, but there was a time in my life where I really didn't like myself very much. And I was really depressed and I was really sad. And I had to like try to remember, you know, was I that bad? I don't think I was that bad, but still bad enough, right? That I didn't like myself, and what did the world look like to me at that time? So try to get some empathy, because they don't see things the way that you're seeing things. And it can be really hard to deal with if you don't really understand it. So the truth is the brain doesn't like change. It just doesn't like change. And even when what's going on isn't great, the fear of what could happen or might happen is often worse in someone's head. And I thought one thing that was really interesting, I actually read something in Psychology Today. Oftentimes this idea of self-sabotaging, like something gets to a certain level and people get uncomfortable and so they bring it back, is because it's something they think they can control. I thought this was interesting. So in other words, I'll give you an example or some idea. People might prefer to sink the ship they're on than to wait for pirates to come and burn it without their control. I know that's a really crazy analogy, but they'd rather do it themselves than the idea of something that's going to happen. So it's like they'd rather control what's happening in their environment, even when what's going on is terrible. So what does all of this mean and how do you change it? Right? So the first thing is, you know, like you got to get some really great insight with people that are smarter than you, right? I've got people around me that are smarter than me, so that have more experience. So I had to go and access some of that knowledge. So, you know, I was a trauma nurse. I worked in the hospital, and I was applying for this job, and I was going up against people who had a lot more experience than I did, higher education, and I ended up getting the job. And later my boss told me, he said, you got the job because of one question that you answered. And I said, what's that? He said, we were questioning everybody. We were throwing these crazy questions at him. And he said, it was obvious to us that you worked in a trauma unit where you were used to not having control. And he said, because we asked you a whole bunch of questions, what would you do in this situation, that situation, this situation? And you looked at us and you went, no one can answer that. And if they answer that, they're lying. Nobody can know all of that. So you can't know the answers to everything. All you can do is know your resources. And that's always been sort of my skill, was knowing that I can't know, but knowing that I can find the answers somewhere. Someone is smarter than me somewhere. So that's what I want you to take away today, is it's okay if you don't know, because there's help out there. There's someone out there who does know. So when I actually called this person back and I'm like, okay, we need to talk. And she started crying and she goes, but I don't know what to do. I'm broken. I don't know what to do and I can't be fixed. And I like had to talk her off that ledge. And she goes, but I don't know what to do. And my answer was the same to her that it is right now. If you're dealing with somebody like this, you don't know what to do. I mean, you don't have to know what to do. All I want you to do is know when to ask for help and start to be honest that you need help. If you can just do that one thing, there are people all around you that know what to do. So that's what I want you to leave here with, is that there's hope. There are people who know what to do. If you're really struggling with something that's truly toxic, you can write to me in my private mailbox. I'm not going to coach you over Facebook. I'm just going to tell you, I will have someone reach out to you if it's truly something that needs that kind of attention. I know there are a lot of people who can't afford to come to the clinics. I already know that. You don't need to be frustrated and tell me that. But all of our books, pretty much, you can get at the library for free. You can check them out. Many of our materials are free on our websites. You can go to tanaamen.com or amenclinics.com. But if you just leave a message and just reach out, at least know there's hope. Someone from our call center will call you. And if you want to call the call center directly and you don't want to leave me a message, that's okay too. I actually have the number here. It's 888-288-9834. And I just realized that if I'm that frustrated and I'm around it all the time, that there's got to be people out there who absolutely feel like they're in the dark and that there's just no hope. So it was a hard weekend. And I'm thinking, if I don't have the answers, that a lot of people out there don't have the answers, but there are people who do. I hope this was helpful to some of you, and look forward to talking to you guys again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.